Hey everybody, welcome back to the One's Ready podcast. You're in the team room with Trent and I'm in a good mood, but I figured we talk about something that gets Trent and I a little spicy. I'm sure if Aaron was here, he would happily join in on it. But we wanted to give you some perspective and also provide some information. So we actually had to Trent and I had to cut our our conversation a little short because we started getting into it before even hitting record. So this at least initial topic, what I want to hit, Trent, is kind of almost a message to cross trainees, give some examples of for those new recruits that are sitting here going like, okay, well, I'll come in and I'll do a different job first, and then I'll cross train, which is a bad plan going in, unless, of course, there's some caveats to that, which we'll hit, but this is kind of more of straight to a cross training. So let me try and paint the picture of a situation that not that I have, but that somebody that has contacted me. And so, hey, I'm sure this dude's watching, listening, like, yeah, this is kind of a shot at you, but you're not the only one, so don't feel bad about it. So yeah. Or, I mean, ping me. You've already been in my DMs and my emails too, so it's fine. Okay, so here's the picture painted. You want to cross train. You're in, I don't know. It could be any job within the Air Force, but you want to cross train into aspect war. You have to still get. You didn't have to in the past, but now, as of now, you still have to get approval from your chain of command, your commander. Your commander, and correct me if I'm wrong, Trent, because you're more in this world than I am, but like the commander is the kind of final authority to allow you to even try it, correct?
Your commander and your like functional manager, like your CFM.
Okay. So
release you from the career field. So
basically those two approving signatures are the ones that allow you to then go to the pipeline to try out.
Yeah, you can't. They tell you can put your paperwork in to apply, and then you get to our functional managers, after you get through all the other nonsense. I really don't want to talk about it too much because I'm already all fired up and I'll start saying
no. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So again, like I said, it didn't used to be that way. It used to be you didn't have to get an approval for a commander. You could just, as long as you got the CFM or the AETC functional approval, you could do it. So what does that mean, though? Now, that means that your commander has direct oversight on whether or not you can do this. So you, as a cross trainee, you've got to be able to train your ass off to get ready for the IFT in the pipeline, because it's more than just the IFT. The IFT is the pay to play. It's the entry level exam. You've got a lot more you got to be able to do. So you're training for the IFT, you're training for the pipeline. Maybe you're working with other folks to help you, develop your physicality, your mental toughness, whatever it is. But you still have a day job. You still have a job that you have to do day to day. Whether you're an airman, you're an NCO, you still have, whether it's a 7 to 4 or a 9 to 5, whatever you want to call it, or if you're, maintenance or security forces, you're working 12-hour shifts. Right. So after that 12-hour shift, you still have to train and work out. During that 12-hour shift, you still have to be all in and what your day-to-day job is. And if you're an NCO, that means leading and caring for people that, work with you.
Yeah. We've said it. I don't know how many times we've said it. Like, don't come to us and be like, oh, as soon as I get to special warfare, I will find my excellence gene. Like I will flip the switch. I will discover all this newfound pieces of me that make me want to show up every day and do all the hard work. Like, I think there's a misunderstanding on a lot of their parts about how exciting or how the job works every day. Because our day to day, until you get out in the field doing stuff, it probably looks a lot like what you're doing right now. It's a lot of, paperwork, taking care of your people, logistics, all that other stuff. So it's just hard to believe that someone could just like flip that switch once they get over.
Yeah. And you talk about the admin stuff, especially around enlisted performance report season or quarterly or annual award season. Like just those in the Air Force's eyes, right, wrong, or indifferent. This is not me advocating for awards or anything like that. And for folks out there, there's a difference between, medals and awards. Well, I definitely don't want to get into that, but God, but that is awards help people get promoted within the Air Force. Somewhat, not always a guarantee ish. Like there's an aspect of that. There's a percentage of it, and it's a small percentage, but all things being equal, maybe an award will help boost that person. Anyway, wow.
Well, the award tells the people doing the promotions how much you're valued by your unit, right?
Right.
And then much the same way as you need your commander's stamp of approval to retrain. Like, do I think that your commander knows everything about you and is maybe the best person to judge you? No, but like your commander's talking to your chief, who's talking to your first sergeant, who's talking to your supervisor. In a perfect world, I'm not saying things don't go sideways sometimes. And I hate when we start recording, I start like thinking about both sides of it. And I'm like, well, I mean, what if the commander's like a real a-hole or something?
Which happens.
Yeah. But for the most part, if you're not getting a commander's recommendation for this, and your career field is not like super hard up for manpower, I mean, that's what we know. I don't know these people that are setting up the paperwork, and I have to tell them like, this isn't personal, but like based on what I see in the paperwork, your numbers, your lack of your commander's endorsement or whatever else there is, either you're not getting to my desk, or I'm going to say no.
Yeah. And it's going to be frustrating. It's frustrating for us because we need people. It's frustrating for the member because they obviously want to pursue something different, and they, maybe they have aspirations of doing this, or this is their dream job or whatever it is. But all that to say, like all of that, what we're talking about to say, all that training that you do, all that extra work you put in does not mean that you can neglect your day-to-day job. Right. So when you submit a package and it has your CERF, which is basically your career data brief, everything about you on one sheet of paper, all your assignments, your education, your rank, your prior, at least the final score on your performance reports and all that kind of stuff. Then you submit, your prior performance reports and your Air Force PT scores and all that kind of stuff. Like all that goes to your commander and it gets denied. Right. So you send that to me, which is fine because I'll take a look at it. I will help out as much as I can. Just like we do this podcast. We're here to help. We're here to help the community. We're here to help you. I'll look at it. Okay. I really will. But when you admit to me that, hey, I kind of, maybe not willingly, but yeah, it was willingly neglected my day-to-day job as an NCO or an airman to train my ass off. Like, man, you got to be the whole package, right? And even in the performance reports, there were downgrades. On the front side, there were downgrades, and I'm like,
oh no,
man. Like, okay, so let me ask you then, since you see these, if there is somebody that gets commander's approval and their EPR shows up to you or Good or whoever, and it has downgrades on the front, like, is that a immediate showstopper, or are you just kind of like, okay, well?
No, if they got all the approvals, then I'll probably call them about it. And I want to look at their other EPRs too. So if you're like across the board, marked all the way to the right, outstanding, like you don't have to get like the push statements and all that other stuff. And then there's 1 year, and maybe it's the last year that you got marked down. I'm going to have questions. I'm going to want to talk to you about it. But like there's weird things. So like the EPR system is so person based. So like, especially when we had like the 1 through 5 EPR system, like if I would have gotten paperwork and someone was marked as 4s for like 3 years in a row under a certain commander under a certain command team, technically that person is above average. But compared to the rest of the Air Force, who marks almost everybody firewall 5s, all the way to the right, all the way down, it looks bad. But the Air Force was always trying to get everybody to understand that 3 was average, 4 was above average, and 5 was like exceptional, right? And so like you have to play those things, you have to take those things into consideration as we go through these like phases of commanders and people trying to like do things the quote unquote right way. And so it's not always that big of a deal. And it's just like when you look at like a 125 Alpha, right, from a kid that got eliminated years ago from the pipeline. And it's like, well, what happened? It's like, oh, well, I had like some discipline issues or this, that, or the other. And it's not that big of a deal. Like, I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're failing to get your commander's recommendation out the door, though, because I ran into a similar problem a little bit ago where someone actually got their paperwork to me. It's a long story, but long story short, I ended up talking to their commander and their first sergeant. And they were like, well, we wouldn't have recommended this guy to begin with. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, and it's like, I have a certain amount of sympathy for the person trying to retrain. But like I said, like, I don't know you. Like, I get your EPR. I get to talk to your commanders. They have a lot more years than you do. Like, they're the ones with the authority. And I get that you want to do this, but like, I only have so much data. I only have so many resources to use up. I only have so many retraining slots. And I it is what it is. But
you kind of alluded to it right there. As a cross trainee, your life is not, it's not solely on you, or your future rather is not solely on you. It's mostly on you, but you still have to get your command team to approve it. You still got to get your functional to approve it. And so on. Whereas if you come in straight, like, this is mainly to the people going, I'll just go do something else and then I'll cross trade. Like, it is never a guarantee. Never. Because now you're relying on other people to say yes to your path. Whereas if you just come in and you just go ham at it, then you have a much better chance. At least you don't have, at least maybe not chance wise, but at least you don't have those other factors that could preclude you from trying out.
Yeah. Yeah, like I totally get someone that's like joining because of a medical thing. Like we've been talking about, like the eyes, right? Man, like if you join because you can't afford the eye surgery to get your eyes corrected, to get into special warfare, so you join the Air Force, and the Air Force is really good about it. You just, get your 5 level or whatever you got to do, you're on a regular job and get your eye surgery, recover from that, and then retrain.
Yep. Like
that makes a certain amount of sense to me. But like there's pros and cons. Like if you're coming off the street, like you're going to have to deal with like understanding how the Air Force does things and how the military does things, and that's that kind of stress and getting through that first and getting yelled at for the first time in your life, maybe. And then coming in as a little bit older, mature NCO, expectations are a little bit higher, but you do have to rely on a lot more people, just to get in the front door. And it's a little bit different. So, there's risk on both sides, I think, but the one's ready recommended way is to come in non-prior service and give the old college try, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously not a one or a blanket statement. We've talked to people before that are in a bad situation at home. Yeah. We've even talked to some homeless folks that just needed, like, I need something, so they couldn't wait, hey, it was a 9-month wait to come in development and stuff like that. Or I could just go in pretty soon, get a job, get a place to live, and get a paycheck and food coming in, and then I'll cross train. Like, all those make sense. There's an unlimited amount of situations that make sense on you coming in just immediately and then cross training. So we're not saying don't do that. We're just saying, like, all things being equal and everything's right, don't plan to cross train if you don't have to.
I remember, it's funny because the things you remember, like when we were early on doing the podcast, I remember we were talking about this, and I think you or Aaron was like, Trent, like, what would you do? And I was like, man, like, and I'm thinking to myself as like an 18-year-old kid, I'm like, I probably would have joined the Air Force first and retrained. Like, that probably would have my best chance for success. I remember you looked at me and you're like, why? That was like one of our first, like, on air almost disagreements. And I was like, I just don't think that at 18 I was, but it was like, so we've been talking about this stuff for a long time, but I think we found some nuance in it, but I think going in off the street, like why wouldn't you? Because then you still have the opportunity to retrain later, right? So at least you get the double shot at it.
Yeah, exactly. So to wrap up the situation that I'm currently dealing with somebody, and trying to help them out. Like they want me to reach out to the commander and stuff like that, but I still need to have a conversation with him after looking at his, his package and everything like that. But, we'll see. I don't want to say what we're going to talk about on here until I actually talk to him. But, you had mentioned that you had a very similar, well, not a similar, but a adjacent, situation that just happened.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say with yours too, if that member, if he's trying to become like a combat controller and he wants to reach out to Chief Goop and be like, hey, can you like talk to my commander? And that way everybody can understand what the situation is, right? Because if it is a career field thing, then there's not much we can do about it, or we can try to go to bat and help them out if they have good numbers and all that other kind of stuff. But if your commander's just like, no, this dude's not the right person, it's going to be real hard.
Yeah.
Because then they're doing us a favor by not flipping the booger. Like I said, I don't know this guy, but like that's how we have to approach the situation.
Yeah.
With the other situation, it was different because the person, I'm trying to think of how much I should say about this because I really don't want to burn the, like, I think this person is like a decent person. It's just a bad situation. This person ended up going back to their base. Like they ended up in the pipeline and then they didn't make it. They failed something or got injured and had to go back. And so when they do that, they have to go back through the functionals to get put back into the pipeline because they go back to their home station or all that other stuff. Anyway, a lot of drama happened. And then I ended up talking to the commander and the first sergeant and stuff like that. And they were like, no, like we never would have recommended this guy. Like, and there's a whole lot of story about it, and I'm not trying to burn anybody down. But it's just, I think the moral of the story is like, I don't know you, y'all. So like the people that are close to you, the people in your sphere of influence, your job, the people that get to judge you first to decide whether or not you are ready and capable and willing to come over to special warfare and be successful. And it's not like your commanders don't have any idea what that means. And your chiefs and all those other people that have been around the block a few times, they're the first look that you get. So that is the first part of your selection process, is being good at where you're at. And for the most part, like what we get glowing recommendations from commanders and chiefs. Like they're like, dude, I do not want to lose this person, but like I can't hold them back because they're just so awesome. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking for. So yeah.
Yeah. There's another situation or another scenario where oftentimes, and this has happened within the last 6 months, at least for me. And I know that it's probably happened to you and Aaron, is where we get asked to vouch for somebody. Right. So there's a couple different ways that we vouch for somebody. One is a letter of recommendation that could go in your package. You get a letter of recommendation from somebody who is a current combat controller, PJ, SR, TACP. Like that holds some weight to it.
Yeah.
Right. If I know you and you meet the requirements I think you meet the threshold to give you a letter of recommendation, I will. If I don't know you, I'm not giving you a letter of recommendation because I'm putting my name on that, to which when I do an IFT, if I sign an IFT for you because I administer an IFT for you, I'm saying that I witnessed you pass that IFT. It's another way of me vouching for you as well, right? Yep. Because the package then goes, to you or to one of the other functionals, and then it stays with that person. And so if you expect us to do that, and we actually do it, right? We give you the IFT, we give you a letter of recommendation, whatever, and then you show up, and it's not just that. Like your functional approves you, your commander approves you.
Yep.
There's a lot of expectations involved in here. Like we're already spending Air Force taxpayer dollars to get you out there. and then you quit day one. Like, man. And I'm saying that because that just happened. That just happened. You quit day one. And I know you're watching. Don't do it. Like,
it's hard to, like, you put your, like, and it's hard to explain to some people sometimes, but like, your reputation in the community does mean something. And like, a letter of recommendation is great, but especially, like you said, if somebody that I know from the community gives these people an IFT, like, to me, that means something. And especially if their numbers are good. Like, this person's been vetted, by one of our guys, and then you bring that person in and they quit. You're basically just throwing up the bird at everybody that put their name on your paperwork, So I have a real hard time with that. We try to go down there and talk to the retrainees when they get to Lackland. I missed them this time, but I know some of the other guys made it down there, and we try to give them like a little chit chat post IFT, assuming they didn't quit before the test even started, about our expectations and what that means. But like you've been working on your reputation in the community for 20 something years.
It's not like, to be clear, it's not like I'm trying to work on my reputation. It's just, I'm just trying to be the best freaking combat controller I can possibly be.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Which failing at it constantly. Like,
personally, I try to psyops my way through everything, and I put out as much positive misinformation about myself as possible so that people will think I'm better than I am. But it's one of those things. Like, we don't put our names on very many things that we don't believe in. I think, it's hard to explain to the people. I just don't know how to do it. It's like the closest thing I can come to it is when I first joined the Air Force. I remember putting on my uniform, and it's not that I don't care that it says U.S. Air Force on my chest, but the first time I remember looking down and like, it didn't say Trent, it said Segmiller, and everybody calls you by your last name. And then I was like, oh, like, I don't want to drag my family's name through the mud. Yeah. But that's what you're doing if you take all of our names and we sign all your paperwork and you drag it through the mud and you make us look, because we get the phone calls. I promise you we do. I get phone calls from people I know being like, man, why'd you send this dude? Like, he didn't even make it through day one. And like, yeah, it's not a lot of fun.
No, it's not. And that's like, we don't just do that for Aspect War. Like, I just made a call on Friday because one of my prior resource advisors, she's, and not just, I'm sorry, I made two, one for her and then another admin troop. Both of them want to come to Nellis. They've both applied for jobs. I know the chief there that is essentially the hiring authority. So I called them up and let them know, like, hey, here's a little bit about this person, just to, not to sway the system, but in a way is like, because when we receive that list of names, that people that apply for the job, it's names. There's not a human factor behind it. So being able to talk to somebody who has firsthand experience with that person, like, hey, yeah, maybe you don't want this person, or maybe these are some of their strengths and their weaknesses, and maybe that's exactly what that unit needs. Or maybe that this person's just a rock star, and it's like, yeah, listen, I'm telling you, you want this person. Okay, cool.
Yep.
It's the same thing, cross-training in the special warfare.
Yeah. It's just a little closer to home. You know what I mean?
Of course. I mean, dude, to quit before you even take the IFT when you show up to Lackland,
dude, that's
when you have numerous people's names on it.
Well, and maybe we should just put it out there, like, the reality of the situation. Again, like, I get that you're a staff sergeant or a senior airman or sometimes even a tech sergeant, and you come over. You will be treated like a day one person, which is what you are. And I know it's not just them that have a hard time with it. I know some of the NPS folks come over and they also struggle with, being a nobody, essentially starting from -10. But I mean, that's what you're signing up for. You should embrace that. You know what I mean? Like, go sleep in the dorms with the folks. If you're an NCO, like, you should embrace the opportunity to positively affect some of these younger folks that are coming in off the street that just graduated from BMT. Listen to their silly BMT stories, like, share your experiences, help them out. That's what you're there for. Not, oh, like this whole like selfish attitude. Like, I'm used to like sleeping in a comfortable bed, but like, then what did you think you were signing up for? Like, then it makes me question, are we not putting out the right information on the podcast? Are we telling people that it's going to be easy and that you're always going to have a soft space to sleep, and like, it's not going to require most of your life to be good at this? I'm ranting a little bit, and I'm sorry, but like,
go. I love it.
It's really frustrating when people don't understand what they're getting themselves into. Like, it's going to suck, but like, in the best possible way, if you let it. And as soon as you stop feeling bad for yourself, then you'll find that positivity in that, pretty crappy environment that you find yourself in.
I think you nailed it. The stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a victim. This is not happening to you. You need to happen to it. Okay. So instead of sleeping on that Tempur-Pedic when you're in certain parts of the freaking pipeline, you're sleeping on a cot, or you're sleeping on the ground. If you're sleeping on a cot, you're lucky you even got a cot.
Yeah.
Shouldn't we? Like, hey, and you're in a controlled environment, right? Like, nothing is going to happen to you. Like, that's detrimental, bad, safety wise. You're in the most controlled safety environment with so many eyes on you. You're going to be just fine. Now, when you're out in the mountains of freaking whatever country and you could get snuck up on or something like that, like, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
Most of us sucked the absolute most, or were the coldest we ever were, actually out training or on an operation, not while in the pipeline.
No.
And you better get up for it, because the pipeline is fun. It sucks, but if you embrace it and you happen to it instead of having a victim mentality, like, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity to push yourself, to see what you're actually capable of in a controlled environment. Like, when you're out there in the mountains or the deserts or wherever it is that, you find yourself later on, you need to be capable enough to do things pretty safe, because like, you don't want to hurt yourself accidentally and become a liability to your team. But like, while you're in that environment, you can get a lot closer to that edge comfortably and really show the people, who you are and what you're going to bring to the team. And you don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry. Like you said, like, you don't have to worry about someone coming through your tent and just, shooting you or whatever. Yeah. I'm trying to be like overly dramatic about it, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else on that? Like, is there anything else that we need to hit on cross-trainees in terms of packages or best practices or do's and don'ts, that kind of thing?
I mean, the paperwork is the first selection. Don't forget, you're judged on your paperwork. So the first time I see your name, all I see is paper. So make sure it looks good. Make sure it makes sense. And then once you get there, there's people that care about your prior experiences, and those are probably the people that you're with on team. But everything else, just start out at day number 1 and be open to learning. And this is like a kind of like a different topic. And I think this happened when I was a senior NCOA, and I can't stop talking about people that are like, oh, I'm too old to learn, or blah, blah, blah. Like, no. Like, I think that's the dumbest thing ever. Like, if you jump into the pipeline, open it up. Like, you can learn something from everyone. That includes like the 18-year-old kid that just graduated high school that's on your team. So having that open mindset and being ready to, put out is important. And no one cares about what you did when you were somewhere else.
That's true. The paperwork wise, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that one person that I was talking about, their paperwork, when they sent me their package, it's got their surf on the front, which is normal. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
And the EPRs or the enlisted performance reports were scanned back page first, then the front page, back page, front page. So it makes it difficult to read. And again, it's the first part of the selection. Like, everything's got to be scanned nice and clean as it can possibly be, aligned, not canted. You're trying, and it's not because, we're real queepy and we focus on admin, but you are trying to make it as easy as possible for the people that are reading your package. You don't want any kind of personal bias to go into that and go like, dude, this person didn't even take the time to make sure that it's readable. Like, cause it's so just smudged or the quality of the scan is terrible.
But I don't think that's creepy. Like when if you're looking at a JM brief or mission planning and like the product that you're looking at, it just isn't easy to digest. If your north facing arrow isn't easy to find, like if you can tell that they just slapped everything together, like you're gonna either, if you're given that briefing, you're gonna get a lot more questions, and if you're receiving that briefing, you're gonna ask a lot more questions because you're like, what is going on? But if it looks clean, it's obviously they put some time into it, and they know exactly what's going on, and things are labeled the right way. That just it increases the level of confidence that you have in that mission, and same with your paperwork when it gets to me for retraining. It increases the level of confidence. So that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, well, before we hop on to another subject, make sure you guys check out eberlystock.com because they've got some phenomenal equipment when it comes to tech apparel and then training rucks. They've got hunting rucks, military rucks, and you can use those for training. They're really comfortable. You'll see a lot of team guys rolling with them. I know that like Rob just went out on a hunt. I'm not sure where he was. I think he was actually in Texas, but he sent us a couple selfies. He was wearing Eberly stock, so you could tell he's like, all right, he's going to be just fine. Probably helping out some bighorn sheep or something. I don't know.
Shoot, I think they've got like socks and gloves and everything now. Like they've really upped their game. So everything you could possibly need for the outdoor life. Yep.
And then make sure you hit them up. eberlystock.com. Promo code is OR10 and get you a discount. And then if you are training for the pipeline, whether you're a new recruit or a cross-trainee, you can check out attacklead.com and use the promo code one's ready. Instead of going kind of piecemeal and shopping around to Amazon to get all these different fins, or hey, are these the right fins that I need? Are these the right diameter and texture of rope for tying knots? No need. You guys can go straight there. You can get a bundle package, or you can go buy individual items. But it's funny. It actually is. I mean, I don't even know how to describe that rope. The rope, because it's climbing rope, but it's not real stiff, static climbing rope. Like it is a certain kind of climbing rope that makes it easier to tie knots, especially when wet. So
we're not PJs here. Sorry. Yeah, it's rope.
Oh, God. But I'm sure Attack Lead has carabiners and all that kind of stuff for you PJ nerds. But, yeah. But anyway, check them out. attacklead.com. Promo code one's ready, gets you a discount.
So and check them out on Instagram. Like when people make fun of people asking for like gear recommendations. Hey, what boots should I wear? Like that's like the big joke all the time. I mean, maybe hit them up because they're deep in the gear game.
Yeah, they are. So one of the kind of other things, and again, it's probably second nature to us, but we get a lot of questions on it, and that would be kind of like the assignment process and assignment cycles. And neither one of us are experts on it because there are always things that are kind of little gotchas and surprises and stuff like that. But I'm going to put you on the spot. Once graduating from, whether you're combat control school, SR apprentice course, PJ apprentice course, or special tactics training squadron, like what are people looking at in terms of assignments? Like, how does that work? It's
math. So typically the only thing where it's not straight math is the overseas STSs. We don't like to send too many guys straight out of the pipeline overseas, just because of the nature of their missions and how dynamic they are and all that other stuff. But for the most part, it's especially if you're like a senior airman, it's where whichever squadron needs the most people at that time. And until you make like tech master sergeant, it really is just straight math. Like, where do people need to go? I need a staff sergeant over here. I need a staff sergeant over here. Yeah, I hate to make it sound like so, non-personal, but that's the way it is.
So that is the assignment, the assignment system as a whole, but there are certain tools that exist to help kind of influence that. It's never a guarantee. You do have, man, I'm losing my voice. You do have dream sheets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if you put on there, hey, I really want to go to, whatever place, if the math allows it and somebody else wants to go to, say, North Carolina instead, you can swap, or they're going to prioritize you going to whatever location over the other one if the math works out.
Yeah, and you can go on like a MyVector or Talent Marketplace, and every time there's like a new assignment cycle, you can go in there and volunteer for things, and also you can update your dream sheet and all those other things. So, if a tech sergeant position comes out, and you want to volunteer for it, and you're a staff sergeant, you can volunteer for it. You might get yelled at or whatever. But if there's like 0 tech sergeant volunteers, and there is a possibility that we'll pick you up as a high performing staff sergeant and put you in whatever position that we're advertising for during that cycle. But so there is a little bit of flexibility in there. But you have if you don't put any effort in, then you will get what you get. Then you're a non-vol 100% of the time. And yada, yada, yada. But like with the new talent marketplace and newish, and with the way that we run our assignments, there is a lot of space to volunteer. And especially with smaller career fields, like I get emails all the time from guys like, hey, I'm trying to get to AATC. Like, how is that going to happen? And then you have to like break out timelines and positions and locations and all that other stuff and see when they're going to be able to get to where they're going, while also still having that conversation with the AFSOC side of the house and understanding what you're doing to the operational squadrons and what their requirements and needs are as well. So it's like a constant balancing act, and also math, and also prioritization of positions. I know I'm going down the rabbit hole a little bit.
No, you're good. It's information that needs to be provided and out there. So say you're already on team, you're staff sergeant, tech sergeant, whatever, you're already on team. And so if you're at a special tactics squadron, you're under the Air Force Special Operations Command umbrella. Like that's yep. Where you're at, right? That's your major command. Talent marketplace, there will be there's certain cycles. I think, how many cycles are there a year?
You have your overseas and your CONUS cycles.
Okay, so you have different cycles of advertisements that come out on Talent Marketplace. And each unit, if they have vacancies, will set an advertisement. It'll tell you what the Air Force specialty code is. It'll tell you what the rank requirement is. It'll also tell you if it can go one up or one down. And what that means is if the advertisement is for we'll just say a staff sergeant, one down means they can be a senior airman or they can be a tech, being the one up. So yep. They can advertise for it. And then once that advertisement closes out, the list gets sent to AFPC, or Air Force Personnel Command Center. Air
Force Personnel Center.
Yeah. And then they do a filter and a scrub just to make sure that there's no kind of gotchas in there. And then the list will come to the unit, and then that unit gets to say, yes or no. Most times they're just going to say yes anyway, because there's almost always vacancies, right? Because we're not 100% man. That changes once you start getting into the senior NCO ranks, Master Sergeant, Senior Master Sergeant Chief. That's a whole different bucket, which for now, let's just get into the pipeline and become a F-Spec War airman, and then we can talk about that.
Well, and for the senior NCOs, it's different for every career field. The way that we try to vector people, because we're so small, is different than combat control a little bit. Like your vectoring process is a lot more formal than ours, just because of the numbers.
Yeah.
And then like you get to like TAC P, and like, man, there are wickets you have to hit on your way if you want to get to a certain position.
Yep.
And so it's very formal just because they have way more numbers. So, it's different for every career field and the requirements to get to certain positions.
Yeah. So like I was talking about, you see an advertisement on Talent Marketplace. It's for a staff sergeant. You're a staff sergeant at a special tactics unit, and you see an advertisement for somebody, an instructor within Air Education Training Command at ANS, right? You can apply for that job.
Yep.
Which there's probably a handful of people that have applied for that job, and say they have 3 openings, you might get one of those jobs. Same for overseas. If there's overseas, like the way Talent Marketplace works is, there's a job listing for your AFSC, but then there's also a map so you can see it. And then sometimes there's just obscure job opportunities, right? And they're not necessarily always for the kind of NCO ranks. They are more for senior NCO, but there's all of a sudden, hey, there's a position at Tampa, in Tampa Bay at SOCOM headquarters, or SOCCENT Special Operations Command Central, or maybe there's something in Stuttgart, Germany, or there's these really kind of cool little positions. Yours is one, like your position is one of those that is kind of obscure, doesn't come open because you're a 1 deep position.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things out there you can get into, but like that's one of those things is finding stuff that the career field values, and being the right person for the job. So,
I mean, look at TJ, who we just had on.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a legislative liaison in DC on Capitol Hill. Like,
yeah, because he's TJ though. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things. And I do. Before I forget, I'm sorry. There's something else that happens. That there is a VML, a vulnerable movers list, that comes out, and so this process isn't like super new, but it is newer. And so if you're on team and you've been like at an STS for a few years and you're not tracking all this stuff, like you might want to go kick in your chief's door and be like, "Hey, have you seen this stuff?" Because your chief is a busy person, and this wasn't a thing when he was coming up through the ranks. So like, he might need the reminder sometimes. I'm not saying chiefs need reminders because they're old and they forget.
Oh, we 100% need reminders. Oh my God. I'll be the first one to tell you.
But like, maybe just like ask him about it. Hey, like, when does the VML come out, chief? And he'll be like, oh yeah. And like, he can hit up our guy at AFPC, and it's a simple process, and then figure out if you're on that list. And that way we can start working, how to keep you where you're at a little bit longer, or how to get you where you want to go. So, like every I don't know, 6 months or so, at least once a year, you need to be interacting with that system in a real way to have any effect over your future.
Yeah, I think the VML comes out twice a year. There's a fall and a spring, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So and the longer you're on station, the higher up on that VML you are, which means you're higher likely to move. The one thing, and I haven't heard it directly from headquarters Air Force or even from Air Force Personnel Command, Center, but from what I understand is the Air Force is looking at not moving people as frequently. Again, this is kind of me just kind of hearing the rumors, but I could be putting out misinformation too.
Yeah. I know within my career field, we try not to move anybody if we don't have to. And, talking to our SW assignments chief over AFPC, like, we have a lot of flexibility to not make changes that are unnecessary. It's like, oh, this dude is like up for an assignment. Where can we move him? We can move him over here. And really all we'd be doing is swapping 2 dudes, one base to another base. You know what I mean? Like, when it comes down to stuff like that, it's like, what do they want to move? You talk to the members, they don't want to move. I'm like, so what are we doing here? Like, why are we swapping dudes for no reason just because they've been on station? So we really try not to move people for no reason. And in fact, since I've been in the seat, I can't think of a single time I moved someone just because. There's always like a vacancy that, all the SELs out there are constantly they're constantly hitting everybody up, trying to get bodies, fill their vacancies to get their mission done on the ATC and the AFSOC side. So, it's interesting.
A comment I had heard, I don't know if it's on Discord or what, but it's like, it was something to the effect of if AFSOC or if Special Tactics or Air Force Special Warfare is hurting so much on people, because we're not 100% man, we're not even close, we're always need people. Why are we so selective, or why are we not, like, people that make it through ANS, like that finish ANS, why are they not selected? Because, and I thought that was kind of a weird, go for it.
No, I mean, we run into this all the time. Like, oh, if you need people, just like open up the floodgates and let people in. It's like, no. Like, when we say we need people, what we mean is we just always have more vacant positions for the right people. Not that I need just warm bodies.
Yeah.
Like, this goes into like the selection process and all this other stuff. And
that's a whole nother podcast, but
yeah,
it's the wrong person can actually create more work.
Yep.
And more disturbances, if you will, like will take my attention away from what I need to be focused on to now I'm focused on that person because they're the wrong person. So yep. you nailed it. Don't just need a warm body. You need the right person with the right mentality, with the right mentality.
Yeah. If a team is greater than the sum of its parts, then all of those team members have to be on like the same sheet of music, on the same level, moving towards the same objective. When you get that person in there that just isn't contributing, then that team becomes even less capable than the individuals on the team. So I know I just repeated what you said. We got to focus on you. Yeah.
No, we got to focus on that person.
Yep.
And that's whether it's discipline or now, hey, if you're on a 14 person team, now you got people that are focused on other stuff instead of like, I got to pick up your slack now. Yep. You're just sitting here taking up space. What? Like, beat it, nerd. Like, yeah. I don't need you here.
Yeah. If they're not there, that the exact same amount of work needs to be done. And like, so it doesn't create that friction between teammates. Because like, if there's 6 of you and there's 8 people's worth of work to do, you're going to get it done. But like, if there's 10 of you and there's 10 people's worth of work, but 2 of those people don't do any work, then like, you're going to spend half of your energy just wanting to, beat the ever living crap out of these guys and go string them up in the, the cage room or whatever.
So that kind of, I've got a situation. No, I don't have a situation out here, but this is just credit to some of the folks that I work with right now. To give an example, right? The Air Force, believe it or not, has a lot of fat it could trim. So when we start talking about distractions or people that are taking up more time, like I get really frustrated because I just want people to work. Just work. Just do your job and just do the best job that you possibly can. Understand that there's going to be places where you falter and they're like, that's fine. Like, that's normal. I falter 50 times a day, like that I could be doing better work. Like, I acknowledge that. But just do your work. So get this. This is how awesome some of the people that I work with are. We have every 6 months at the end of the kind of capstone of WISNT or weapon school is called WISNT. It's weapon school integration. And so you take this 5.5 month course, and the last month of it is where everybody comes to Nellis. Every mission design series, every aircraft platform comes to Nellis, and we do these full mission profiles. And I'm talking high end, like very, very high end for that entire month. And you're talking about a lot of assets and very complicated too, with threats on the ground. And then we bring in the Navy, and we've got ships out in the Pacific, like the whole deal, right? How many people do you think plan that?
Well, there's always a point of diminishing returns when it comes to planning teams. I don't know.
4.
8. I was going to say 8. Yeah. Wow. 4
people plan that, and they're busy, like, right. But they're phenomenal human beings. There's 3 majors and 1 tech sergeant.
Dang.
Right. And I'm talking about like landing at at different bases, not hey, going out and flying the mission and then coming back to Nellis. Like they land at 5 different bases, kind of thing too, right? So it's a major flex. And there's also a man, I could catch some heat for this, but not for what I just said, but for the comparison that I'm about to make. There is an exercise that happens a couple times a year. This is a separate, different entity, right? Not the web school. There's an exercise that happens several times a year that lasts 3 weeks, so a week shorter, but whatever, and is less involved, but it's still very, like, it's still got a lot of moving parts to it, right? They have a planning cell that is 76 people.
Why?
It's a great question. Why? It took 4 people to plan that every 6 months. Now, granted, we only do it 2 a year. They do 3 or 4 times a year, right? But it's there is the whole point I'm getting at is there is you nailed it. There's a point of diminishing returns, right? Having a lot of people can be good. But if you're, again, I've got other people that now I got to focus my attention on them versus focus on planning this event or planning this month-long exercise, then, like, man, you're taking up my bandwidth. 4 people, incredible Americans, right? Incredible airmen are planning all of this with the Navy and with Space Force and 76 struggle with it. I just, so all that to say, like, that's why we don't open the doors and open up the floodgates and lower standards or anything like that, because we want the right people. I would rather be undermanned and have the right people than manned at 100% and have a bunch of turds around me.
Yep.
Boy, that was a long way to get around to just saying that. Yeah,
but I mean, it's hard to explain until you've actually been on team, I think. Well, if you've ever been on a high performing team, regardless, you know,
have I, or
no, like if people out there ever have, like that's what we're looking for. You know, if you take like an NHL hockey team and you throw me on that team, you know what I mean? Are they like still as good as they were with, I don't know how many people on the ice plus me, or are they way worse because I'm skating around and falling all over the place and like getting in their way? Like, I'm getting in their way. I'm actively degrading their ability to get the job done because I am a terrible skater. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you don't need that stuff in your way, and that's just the way it is.
No. It's the reality of it. All right. Well, I'm done ranting. I got a little bit. I wore myself out on that last one and realized I was just talking.
Can we talk about something that TJ said real quick?
Yeah, being the best.
Man,
or something else.
No, that is. I listened to that, and I'm like, I'm not, like, I know what he's saying. Is you want to be the best at everything, and that's the way he said it. And like when I listen to TJ, I talk to TJ like he is that person that legit wants to be the best at every single thing. And I'm like, I just don't think I'm that guy. Like, I'm so like in my head that like I will strategize about things. Like, I want to be the best at something, and I definitely don't want to be the last at anything. But like I took a PT test one time with a bunch of young dudes, right? And I remember being like, what can I beat these guys at? Like, you know, like I know these, they'd come out of the pipeline. I knew all these dudes. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to beat them at the pull-ups. Like, such and such can do like 30-something pull-ups or whatever. You know, like if I beat them at sit-ups, nobody cares about sit-ups. And push-ups are wash. And I think like I'm not the fastest guy in the water. But I'm like, I'm going to like sandbag a little bit. And I'm going to crush these dudes at the run. You know what I mean? Like, so like, I don't know, like when he says that, be the best at everything, I'm like, well, I want to be the best sometimes, and I definitely don't want to be a liability. But like, I think just the way I approach things is a little bit different. You know, now I've said it out loud, so you can make fun of me about it.
I look at it as more of a mentality, not like you're obviously not going to be the best at everything, but I think it's that striving to be the best at everything. Like, I think that's what you're getting at, because although TJ kind of is the best at everything,
right?
And there are those kind of human beings. It's kind of like K-Dub, like he's kind of the best at everything.
Yeah.
Right? You get what I mean? Like, you're going to have those freaks in nature. But I think as long as you are striving to be the best at everything,
I want to be the best that I can be in the things that I can make the biggest impact with. You know what I mean? Like my strengths. Yeah. I want to maximize my strengths to maximize the team's ability. But like me working on certain things to try to, you know what I mean? Like I have to prioritize like what I'm doing. And I know this isn't what TJ meant. I'm not trying to like say like he was wrong. I'm just saying like, I wanted to say for like people out there like me that maybe, filter and analyze things the way that I do and spend way too much time overthinking crap in your head. Like, I don't think that's what like that, like you're saying, it's a mentality, but like, there's nothing wrong with, prioritizing and maximizing your abilities as opposed to like, I'm not trying to be the best swimmer in the world. Like I need to be fast. I need to be good, but like, there are other things that I can do when I'm on team that make a difference that I'm better at than other people.
Yes.
Anyway.
Well, it kind of goes to that. Do you focus on your weaker? If you're strong in some areas and you're weak in other areas, do you spend your time getting better at those weaker areas, or do you spend time getting phenomenal at the areas that you're already strong in? Like, do you sacrifice this to bring this up, or do you just say, I'm happy with this being down here and then I'm going to focus on that? Like, I think there's probably arguments for both.
Yeah. Well, and in PT terms, right? Like if you fail your
just
pull-ups,
everything,
you fail your pull-ups. Yeah. Like, so like you have to get to a certain point. So like, am I trying to do, and like I'm not trying to break the pull-up record, but like, I know that like, I can't keep working on my run if I'm going to fail my pull-ups or my push-ups or whatever else, the swim and all that other stuff. So I think there is a balance, but you gotta find out, what you're good at, but also, we're masters of nothing for the most part, but whatever your strengths are and whatever gaps you can fill, that's where you really need to like focus most of your energy on, while also not being a liability in any single situation.
Yeah. Now I remember, and I was really young on team. There was a special tactics officer that, who opted to just kind of live that admin life, right? I mean, he was still in shape and all that kind of stuff, but he always went after more admin type positions, and I never understood. And granted, I was a senior. I mean, like whatever. I'm about that team life, Yep. And I never understood it until several years ago. And I realized like he identified his strength. He knew his strength. He knew that he wasn't the best team guy, but he knew where he excelled and he was phenomenal at it. So he capitalized on those strengths by, hey, I know the way Air Force money works. I know the way that how to acquisitions and all that other kind of stuff. So he was like, since I know this and I'm good at it, like that is my contribution to the community, is I will sacrifice being a team guy or a leader in a squadron, and I'm going to help the community out by this. And he did a phenomenal job at it. So I think that kind of goes into your point. Like, I don't know. And I'm not saying this is about you, but maybe you were, maybe somebody's an average team guy, but they're phenomenal, assignment manager or MFM or CFM or something like that, so they may not be helping direct people, but as a umbrella or as a large, they have a larger impact over the community.
Yeah. I'm just, it just stuck with me all week. Every time I take a shower, I'm like, what do we mean to be the best at everything?
Specifically a shower, huh?
That's when all my brain goes crazy, because there's like, how it goes. But like, like I'm trying to think about like the folks out there, and they're like, well, how do I be the best at everything? And I try to look at the comments and a few other things and be like, man, just when you're first trying to join, you have to meet all of these requirements and you should be exceeding all of these standards. And so like when TJ's saying be the best at everything, it's like be the best version of you that you can possibly be that brings the maximum amount of goodness to your team and to your own life, and to the people around you. So that's it. That's what I just wanted to talk about it real quick. See what you thought.
That's good. I mean, I think we're in violent agreement.
Yeah.
I just think, I think we agree.
I think so.
I mean, he left it nebulous, and I think TJ, if anything, knows, hey, not everybody's going to be the best at everything, because if you're the best at something, that means I'm not the best, but we can both bring each other up. It's that whole rising tides raises all ships kind of thing. Like I always noticed that whenever I played soccer, whenever we played a team that was better than us and we knew that they were better than us, we leveled up as well.
Oh yeah.
Because when you surround yourself or you compete with people that are so much better than you, typically you will play better. You will perform better. So if you're trying to be the best, now I'm trying to be the best, and Aaron's trying to be the best, like we're all leveling up together.
Yep. Yeah. I think that competitive spirit is definitely important, and everybody, brings something to the team. So
yep,
it is what it is.
That's it.
I mean, my hair is better than Aaron's. That's just a fact, but so we don't need to compete about that anymore.
I wish he'd stop wearing that wig, that toupee.
I mean, whatever,
That's your
until
thing.
he retires.
That's your thing.
Maybe he'll take it off when he retires.
Yeah. The fact that he draws salt and pepper into that too, it's really bad.
We'll put it in the shadow box.
All right. Everybody out there, please like, subscribe, leave us comments, leave us some reviews. Hit us in the DMs if you have questions. And hopefully this helped. I know we kind of got a little ranty, but some of those things just got to get off the chest. If Aaron was here, we were actually to talk about something else and rant on something else. So we'll save that for another time. But
I don't even have to say anything. You get Aaron ranting. I'm just going to sit here.
You just sit here. Just sit there with your hair looking pretty. All right, everybody out here.
Later.